Guys, can you believe it's been 3 years since the Meghan and Harry Oprah interview? How have things changed since then? Let's break it down. Welcome to Popcorn Palace. I am Andy Signor, and it's guest week. We are continuing it with Royal Daily Tea. Michelle is here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Andy. How are you?
I'm great. So happy to have you back. We have you via audio, but happy to have you regardless. So you'll be hearing her in there. But I'm glad you're here because that's how you started, right? You got started through your viral TikToks, bringing up the Oprah interview. That's how a lot of people got into this whole subject matter. And my goodness, it's been 3 years since Harry and Meghan decided to speak out about the royal family in the presence of Oprah. And I thought, you know what? Perfect time to revisit and look at how things have changed since then. Because it's interesting. When this dropped, you were one of very few that was like vocally being as aggressive as I feel like everyone is now. It took a while for everybody else. You know, plenty of people were wise and caught it here. But it took, would you agree, it took a lot longer for the rest of the world, I would say, to see through the BS that this was. Would you agree?
Yes. And it's funny because my very first TikTok, as we talked about last time that I was here, was the birth of Royal Daily Tea was on March 7th, 2021. So it was literally the 3-year anniversary was the day that this interview dropped. I think this was the moment that a lot of people started to kind of stand back and say, wait a minute.
It's funny because I think we talked about it when I was not paying as close attention, honestly. Even Steph wasn't really as much involved yelling about it. And when I saw this with my wife and I bought some of it just because I hadn't been paying attention. You know what I mean? I didn't know. It was very easy to sort of take this as it was, right? And assume, oh yeah, the royals, they seem like they're a pain in the butt, whatever. This was such a sneaky, manipulative way to try to really gaslight everybody, especially those who weren't really familiar with the royal family and what they do. And so it's interesting is now fast forward all the things that have come out about these two, all that we've done, the fact that we're still waiting for that bullying report, to be fair, but so much has come forward to really point out the truth about these two. I'm glad we're finally getting there, but what's the biggest surprise to you all these years later? What are you surprised by most 3 years since Oprah?
Well, I'm glad to see that more and more people have kind of caught on to them. So I'm not surprised about that, but I am surprised that 3 years later, they're still doing the virtue singling and the victimhood narrative. March 8th, literally the day after the 3-year anniversary of the Oprah Winfrey interview, Meghan Markle, as you know, was at the South by Southwest Women's TED Talk, is what I like to call it, the feminist TED Talk, over there in Austin, talking about how she was cyberbullied, you know, being pregnant. And I'm like, it's ironic that you were actually pregnant with your second child, Lilibet, when you were lying about the royal family to the entire world on national television, and how you and your husband never retracted any of those horrific claims, and the amount of hate that the royal family has gotten. And in my opinion, that was also the birth of the Sussex Squad, because at that time, Catherine and the royal family did not have that amount of hate that was born, in my opinion, the day that she sat down for Oprah Winfrey and accused them of being unconscious biased, right? That was the birth of the Sussex Squad, in my opinion. And they've never, ever came out and said, hey, guys, you got it wrong. We didn't mean what you thought we said. You know, they never came out and corrected it. Instead, they've made a living on bashing the royal family. That's what I'm astonished, is that she's still playing the victim, even though she literally started it. You know, it reminds me when you were a kid and you say, you started it. Yeah, literally, they started it.
She started it. Well, it's just interesting because as we look by the South by Southwest appearance, which is now, you know, I don't know if it's we'll see in time, but not a lot of people watched it, to be fair, but it's gotten a lot of press, right? That seems to be what the point of it was. And it does sort of feel like a resurgence, if you will, of the victim, you know, PR campaign that they started here with Oprah. all these years later, it's like, how can we find ways to go back out and remind people that we're victims, but make it seem professional and like we're not actually putting it out there. Like people are asking us about it and people are reinforcing it about us. It is interesting to see that they've gone from Oprah to paying to sponsor an event owned by the Hollywood trades to put herself out there and likely have a lot of these forced questions be presented so she can once again decry bullying and what all that she faced, because as you know, they got to always play victim. All these years later, she's still playing this card. And it's just so weird because so many celebrities have to deal with this. I always call this is like the tax of being rich or famous, is dealing with sort of, detractors. And I don't wish it on anybody. Like we should all be kind. No one should be harassing Meghan or anybody. But my God, girl, like you're not the only one who faces this, but you're the only one I hear so much. Would you agree? Like what other celebrities are out there complaining like she does? And it's so weird. We've been making videos this week, but she doesn't want, security is always a tight thing, but then she's just going to random people's houses to do photo ops. I mean, the hypocrisy of this woman shows no bounds. Do you concur?
Well, what I really love about Harry and Meghan is they punch and kick, and then they put out a puff piece about Meghan Markle saving a kitten from a burning building. Like she's visiting this family in Uvalde because they want people to see that she's Mother Teresa, that she cares for the people, because she's such a caring person, but yet they don't extend it to their own family.
Nope.
So I think that's what the message is kind of getting lost. And of course, they show up with a film crew. So again, it's like, it's hard to believe it because she's so unauthentic. And what I do find hilarious, and I'm sure you've discussed this several times, is the fact that she wants to be a feminist. She wants to be a humanitarian. But the problem is that's not who she is. And I've always said this, Meghan Markle needs to go back to her roots. Girl, go back to being a D-list actress. Go back to the TIG.
Oh, she'll never do it.
Be who you are, girlfriend. No one's buying this Mother Teresa, Princess Diana 2.0. I'm a humanitarian. I'm the next Gloria Steinem. It's like, girlfriend, you got your fame by marrying a man. Like, you haven't done anything on your own to be calling yourself a feminist, right? So
well, she's buying access, it seems, as we go to these events. Like, she's buying her placement to be an expert. And as she sits there next to Brooke Shields, who's actually very eloquent and deserves her fame. She, worked a really long life and actually was the victim of some awful stuff throughout her career. But she sounds so much more eloquent than Meghan does, who's just so scripted, so phony, and out there to just try to make herself look like the big deal, which was just really jarring to watch how many times she's plugging herself or getting the panel to plug herself or talk about soap stories that aren't even accurate. The whole thing's a mess.
Well, I like how she turned that whole panel about women empowerment to her own victim narrative. It's like, again, and then I think a lot of people were thinking that Katie Couric might have baited her into talking about the soap story. I really do think it's going to be on her tombstone at this point. Here lies Meghan Markle, the girl who changed the Procter & Gamble commercial when she was 11. But my favorite part was when Brooke Shields came up and says, "At 11, I was a prostitute." Like, it was like, you could see the mask slip on Meghan Markle's face. She was not happy that Brooke stole her moment.
100%. It was and it was also like Brooke proving she was actually, had gone through real female struggles. You know what I mean? Whereas Meghan, who's lying about her own father's involvement in that story, I don't know if we released that one yet, but it's coming. I guess we already probably did. But I did a video breaking all that down. Like, the truth of that story is unreal. She's using it. I still can't go over. I'll repeat myself because I'm sure you'll concur. Like, this woman is cutting off her father, who it turns out was the one who empowered her and sort of tricked her into thinking that whole story was legit, where it was a class project that her father helped amplify to give her that motivation. Right. And now, fast forward all these years later, she will, never speak to him. Meanwhile, the racist father of Harry's is now getting visits, but her own father, who literally created the person she is, right? Empowered her to be the person who can tell a story all these years later, dead to her. It's so fitting how it all comes together. Yeah, thoughts?
Well, the thing that's ironic, Andy, and you brought up a good point about her not speaking to her daddy, as I like to call him. When her actually it was around the time of the Uvalde shooting, I believe her father had had a stroke or heart attack, living in Mexico, which is probably 3 to 4 hours away from Meghan Markle. She couldn't go visit him, but I believe the next day she boarded the plane to be seen in front of those children at Uvalde for that camera moment. And then here she is 1 year later, doubling down, visiting the family members who were part of the Sussex Squad for Uvalde. Now, my heart does go out to that family for losing a family member. I'm not saying anything negative about the people that she visited, but it just seems so orchestrated and so unauthentic that, again, she still hasn't reached out to her father, but yet she's going to fly out there when she's in Austin to go see those people that's connected to Uvalde, when even the president of the United States waited 5 days to go out to that spot. He wanted the town and the people to grieve. But Meghan Markle showed up, the next day with a camera crew. It's like, read the room, have some, dignity, let people grieve. It's not a photo op. But here she is, talking about being the victim of a cyberbully. I was cyberbullied. And now she's doing her fake royal tours, showing people she's Mother Teresa, visiting the people of Uvalde to bring home that she's a good person. I would believe that story if we didn't have a history and a graveyard of people that she's ghosted, including her family, that say otherwise.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, again, 3 years ago, this is when it all sort of started, where I would say the most vocal, I'm a victim, the royal family's racist, all this was stemmed. And I think over the past 3 years, we've summarized it pretty well. It is really just frightening how she's still at it, just trying to lie, manipulate, and rewrite things, and, again, play victim.
Well, and it's also not even just the interview. Like, if it was just the interview and they would have left it alone, but they've doubled down and made an entire career with Spare, with the Netflix interview, with her podcast, with her interview saying, oh, I don't have an NDA and I have a lot to say. Like, are you coming out with a burn book of your Meghan Markle Duchess diaries? And then with Harry with the GMA interview, doing a dig saying, my brother's jealous of me. So for two people who have preached kindness and forgiveness and have talked about the evil tyranny of the royal family, they do the opposite of what they stand for and what they're preaching, because the way they paid their bills is through Slam and his family. 4 years into Megxit, they haven't moved on. If you're continually, bringing up your royal family, slamming them, then you double down with your hypocrisy with Sussex.com and you give your children prince and princess titles. I mean, make it make sense, Andy. The hypocrisy.
I can't.
I don't understand it.
I can't make it make sense. But all I know is at the beginning, I think a lot of people were tricked, and the hand holding, the playing it all out. And I agree. If it had just been this, it would have been one thing. If they had actually done this interview and disappeared and been quiet, I think a lot of people would have been more still on their side. But you're absolutely right. Over the past 3 years, we've seen books, more interviews, more appearances, more the foundation. What the hell is it? There have been the fake car chase, everything that's coming out victimizes themselves and has only made matters worse as they keep crapping on the royal family and then expecting, oh, well, we're here to help. These two are delusional, and we've fully now come around, I think, to really learn it. And what's interesting is, I would say now 3 years later, today was today marked Friday, whenever that panel happened. That marked to me the beginning of this new phase 2, where I think Meghan is now like, all right, Harry, you're not helping here. Time to step up and rewrite what this couple can do. And I'm going to use all my powers to show myself as the well-spoken feminist who can really make change. And I don't think it's going to work the way she thinks it is. I think in her mind it is, but we'll see. And we'll obviously be here to keep documenting as it happens. But my goodness, what a 3 years it's been. If you want to follow more of it, make sure you go follow Royal Daily Tea. Always a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for helping me fill in some videos this week. I want you guys down in the comments to tell me what's been your favorite moment all these 3 years later. How do you feel regarding the anniversary of Oprah's interview? Make sure you also hit the subscribe button and the bell if you haven't already. That's the button. That's the bell. hit that thumbs up. And again, share your thoughts. 3 years. Can you believe it? It's wild. Stay tuned. We got so much more coming for you. Appreciate all you and stay tuned for more.
Thank you, Andy. Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.